people who go along to teachers and have a Satori in Satsang, and then some silly teacher says, now you're awake. This is bullshit.
Can you please describe your experience of your first Satori?
I can't say that it was an experience as much as it was everything in the universe was me. But that wasn't an experience. It's what experience appears in. Everything appeared as love. And every particle was myself, but without an I, not the personal self. And so it was like experiencing God as self, but not separate from God, God as God, or truth as truth, whatever you want to put it. And that particular Satori changed my life incredibly, because at that point, I didn't want to be a businessman anymore. I just wanted to wake up. I wanted to find that space that I'd found in Satori again and exist as that. And so within a few weeks of that, I walked into my companies and gave my companies to my staff. Walked out broke. Best thing I ever did.
What role does the mind play in Satori?
There's that's aware of the mind, and it's always there, but most people aren't aware of that awareness of the mind. When that's aware of the mind becomes aware of itself, that's Satori. When it stays aware of itself continuously, it's enlightenment. For it to stay aware of itself, particularly in the early times, I think the mind needs to be equanimous or non-reactive. And so it doesn't attract awareness back to itself after awareness goes to itself. And this is where I think a lot of people fail, because they don't produce a mind that will support what is found, awareness aware of itself. And so they go into contraction over anything, any form of resistance, and awareness pulls away from itself and goes back to the mind. And the ego presents itself again, claiming, I had a Satori. Whereas if awareness stays on awareness, there's no claim, because there's no one to claim. The ego is gone.
Are there different types of Satori?
Yeah, there are. There's really mild Satori, like just experiencing the silence and the stillness, to experiencing the nothingness, knowing self as nothingness or emptiness, or knowing self as everything. There are different depths of Satori. There's no doubt about that. But what quite often can be missed by a person who's had a major Satori is the silence and stillness as Satori, which is always here as well. Because the mind starts this comparison number. It starts comparing the major Satori to everything else that happens. And this is a trap. That's why in Buddhism, they say, if you meet the Buddha on the path, you should kill the Buddha. The Buddha that you meet on the path is the Satori. And the comparison that people run on that to everything else is the problem, because it's another dream, it's another mind trip.
There's silence and stillness and the emptiness and awareness. Are they all the same thing?
Everything is the same thing. The mind looks at things from a specific point, and it measures everything with reference points. The problem that it has with beingness or the truth or God, whatever you want to call it, is it has no reference points, so it can't actually be described and understood by the mind. The mind is way too limited to understand or comprehend what we truly are. It can get an idea, but it's just an idea. Ideas aren't real.
So does the idea of what truth is help someone to wake up?
Well, it might motivate people to do the work that's required to prepare the mind for enlightenment. It might give motivation, but that's about it. These people who go along to teachers and have a Satori in Satsang, and then some silly teacher says, now you're awake. This is bullshit. In that moment, you may be experiencing self as truth, but what happens when the teacher goes away with the Buddha field? Or what happens when you go back into contraction because you don't agree with something? What's found gets lost. Not that it can be truly lost, because it is what you are, but the mind goes back to dreaming. Awareness goes back to the mind. Awareness pulls away from itself.
Why is it so rare for awareness to stay aware of itself?
I don't think people are truly prepared to pay the price for enlightenment. It's everything. There's one deal, and there's only one deal. Everything for truth, everything for God, whatever you want to call it, and nothing for you. That's the only deal. There is no other deal. And so anything that you're hanging on to is going to drag you back into ego-based reality.
Well, sometimes you speak of the practice of not touching the mind.
Mm-hmm.
How can I practice not touching the mind in everyday life?
Well, that's a pretty advanced teaching. It's in 𝐬𝐞𝐥𝐟 over and over again with the least trace of thought. In other words, don't touch the mind. But it takes a fairly disciplined mind, a mind that has been trained to not touch itself. Because most people have minds that just jabber away all day long because they've never been trained to be quiet. They've never been trained to be silent. Meditation is the training that's required to come back to reality. Meditation means being aware of what is real, knowing full well that everything you think is not real.
Is your experience after enlightenment different from your experiences in Satori?
Satori and enlightenment are not an experience. It's what experience appears in, and people get this misunderstanding. I am what experience appears in. I'm not an experience.
Is it possible to live in continuous Satori?
Well, that's enlightenment. You're asking me if enlightenment's possible.
I guess it'd be better to ask, how is enlightenment possible?
By that's aware of the mind, continuously staying aware of itself. Consciousness, conscious of itself continuously. Self-inquiry can facilitate that, but self-inquiry is pretty much a waste of time unless you've done the work on developing a mind that is equanimous, a mind that stays even while under fire, even while giving fire. And that's a fair bit of work involved in that.